Just keep still. Keep together.
Welcome to Watch Mojo. And today we're examining 20 horrible tragedies that occurred at concerts around the world.
Not once were we told that there were going to be any pyrotechnics whatsoever.
The Reim Music Festival. Shortly after sunrise on October 7th, 2023, a rocket siren went off at the music festival's Supernova Sukkot gathering near Kibbutz Reim, a few miles from the Gaza Strip.
This place is indescribably eerie.
Surrounding the grounds, Hamas militants fired into the crowd, killing 364 people. They also took 40 hostages. Countless others were wounded. It was part of a larger surprise attack that left over 1,000 Israelis and foreign nationals dead.
We got to the safe zone, the village next to us, and you see all the survivors from the event.
In retaliation, Israel launched a wide-scale bombing campaign and invasion of the Gaza Strip, killing over 38,000 Palestinians as of writing, making it the deadliest war in the Gaza-Israel conflict so far. Woodstock 99. Event planners need to study Woodstock 99 as it contains everything you shouldn't do when planning a large concert.
Really, it's out of sheer luck that it didn't end up worse than it did.
Attempting to emulate the peace and love of the original Woodstock, organizers held a third iteration in July of 1999. But the event was horribly planned from the outset. The problems were countless, from an inadequate sanitation system to overpriced water in the scorching heat.
It's going to crash. It's going to crash in a very big, cinematic, cataclysmic way. 3 people died, 2 from heat-related causes. Sexual assault was rampant in the massive crowd. Frustrations built and built before exploding into a flurry of violence on the night of July 25th, complete with rioting, mass vandalism, and fires.
It did feel like this unifying force, like these are my people now and we're gonna go crazy.
With performer Anthony Kiedis likening the site to Apocalypse Now. The Bataclan Theater attack. Another devastating terror attack occurred on November 13, 2015, when the Islamic State coordinated a series of attacks throughout Paris.
Were you looking down? Were you?
I was in the fetal position. I was resting my head on a couple and a man who was trying to protect me, protect my body.
One played out at the Bataclan Theater, a small venue known for hosting rock concerts. On this date, Eagles of Death Metal were playing to about 1,500 people when 3 gunmen entered the venue and started shooting.
And we went in the corner of the stage. We weren't sure if they were targeting us or what was going on.
They were free to shoot for almost 25 minutes, killing dozens of people and injuring hundreds more. Included in the death toll was the merchandise manager of the Eagles of Death Metal. When police finally arrived, 2 of the attackers took their own lives by detonating their vests, while the third was killed by gunfire.
I just hope you understand, baby duck, that I love you very much, and you were here for us because this has always been our band. That's how we look at it.
The Cromagnon nightclub fire. On December 30th, 2004, the Argentine rock band Caballeros was performing in the República Cromagnon. This nightclub had no fire alarm, an expired fire safety license, and little suppression material to speak of, with 10 of the 15 extinguishers not working.
These kids were leaving the place and then collapsing.
And in a club with a maximum capacity of 1,500, 4,000 people were watching Caballeros play. During the performance, a pyrotechnic was set off and ignited the insulation foam in the club's ceiling. The fire quickly spread out of control owing to the flammable decorations, and to make matters worse, 4 of the 6 doors were chained shut to prevent non-payers from getting in.
If the fireworks were in the concert hall, it's because for a bit of money, the local inspectors were looking in one direction and the police in another.
But people couldn't get out, and nearly 200 died from breathing the poisonous air. The Mawazin Stampede, meaning Rhythms of the World. Mawazin is an annual music festival held in the Moroccan capital of Rabat. As part of this festival, Moroccan pop star Abdelaziz Stati was holding a free concert at the Ain Nada Soccer Stadium on the night of May 23, 2009. Shortly after midnight on May 24th, the concert ended and 70,000 people rushed to the exits. This mass of surging people quickly resulted in a stampede, and people were crushed and suffocated as the mass moved forward. 11 people lost their lives, all having been crushed to death. A further 40 were injured, 8 of them quite seriously. The Curtis Mayfield Accident. An enormously influential musician, Curtis Mayfield found success as a solo artist and a member of the R&B group The Impressions. Their song People Get Ready is highly regarded, appearing on a number of best-of-all-time lists.
People get ready, there's a train a-coming.
On August 13, 1990, Mayfield was set to perform at an outdoor concert in Brooklyn. While being introduced on stage, a scaffold was knocked down by a strong gust of wind and fell directly on top of Mayfield.
I guess the first thing set in was, this is a crisis. The important thing is that I don't allow myself to die.
While he survived, the falling scaffold broke his neck and left him paralyzed from the waist down. He would live another 9 years in this condition before dying in 1999 from diabetes. Big Beach Boutique 2. Like Woodstock 99, Big Beach Boutique 2 was a logistical nightmare that resulted in tragedy.
When I first arrived in this room, I was just looking out going, oh, this is brilliant, there's so many people.
Famous DJ Fatboy Slim put on a free concert on the beach of Brighton, a resort city on the south coast of England. He was expected to perform for 60,000 people, but 250,000 showed up, and the authorities were not prepared.
Brighton has always been a good place to come and party. It was just rammed, it was chocker all the way down.
The beach was crowded with too many people, and some people were pushed into the ocean, forcing a Coast Guard helicopter to perform numerous rescues. Approximately 160 people were injured in the crowd, and ambulances could not reach the service tents owing to the enormous crowds.
This is not the day we planned for. It's gone wrong.
6 people were arrested, 2 died, and half of the police force on duty that day underwent trauma counseling. The Ghost Ship Fire. On December 2, 2016, a massive fire occurred in an Oakland artist collective called The Ghost Ship.
This fire has been a devastating tragedy.
About 100 people were attending a concert in the collective, including residents who unlawfully lived in the building, when a fire broke out. The cause of the fire remains unknown, but it quickly engulfed the entire building. 36 people died, making this the deadliest California building fire in over 100 years.
The ghost ship was no secret to anybody. The ghost ship just became a secret when they decided not to charge the owner and when they tried to protect certain aspects of the city government.
The ghost ship had numerous issues that contributed to the tragedy. It had known electrical problems and no fire sprinklers, and it had been poorly constructed to house the illegal tenants.
California law says a landowner must maintain the property to prevent an unreasonable risk of harm, stating everyone is responsible not only for the result of willful acts, but also for an injury.
Owner Derek Almano was charged with manslaughter and sentenced to 12 years in prison, but he was released for time served. The Roskilde Crush. Every summer, the city of Roskilde, Denmark holds the Roskilde Festival, the largest music festival in the Nordic countries.
The festival had been inspired by Woodstock and had been running for nearly 3 decades and was considered to be one of the safest festivals in Europe.
On the evening of June 30th, 2000, the iconic grunge band Pearl Jam was performing for 50,000 people on the festival's orange stage. The crowd were swaying in a wave-like motion to the music, but a large number of people fell, likely owing to the slippery and muddy ground. This opened up a hole that was filled by the dancing crowd, and the people on the ground were quickly stomped and suffocated.
Up in front, fans slipped on the muddy, rain-soaked ground and were crushed or trampled.
Crowd surfers alerted security of the problem, and the band stopped the concert, but it was too late. 9 people died and a further 26 were injured. The Santika Club Fire. Bangkok's Santika nightclub was hosting a New Year's party on the night of December 31st, 2008. Just after midnight, in a horribly cruel twist of irony, about 1,000 people were watching a band called Burn perform when a fire broke out in the nightclub.
We tried to help those we could. We saw some people trapped in the staircase burning and crying for help, but we couldn't get to them.
The exact cause remains unknown, but it was most likely an electrical accident in the ceiling. The building was poorly regulated, only having one main exit and using plastic as a waterproofing material. This plastic quickly burned and caused the people to faint, which undoubtedly added to the casualties.
People stuck inside when the fire started. People stuck inside because they can't breathe.
67 people died in the fire, and over 200 were injured. And club owner Waisuk Setsawat was eventually sentenced to 3 years in prison. The Riverfront Coliseum disaster. Iconic rock band The Who embarked on a world tour in 1979, this being their first since the passing of drummer Keith Moon.
Just after we lost Keith Moon, we were a wounded animal. I have to say that. We weren't playing at our best.
On the night of December 3rd, the band was scheduled to play in Cincinnati's Riverfront Coliseum. Despite a sizable crowd waiting outside the venue, only 2 doors were open to permit entry.
And 18,000 kids were supposed to go through 2 turnstiles and show a ticket at a Who concert, as if they're going to do that in an orderly manner.
To make matters worse, the crowd then heard a sound check from outside and believed that the band was starting earlier than expected. This resulted in a panicked surge towards the 2 open doors, and 11 people were killed in the crush. Regardless, the concert went on as planned, and the band were not told of the tragedy that occurred outside.
You know, one of the reasons maybe why the scar has been tricky is because, wow, you know, this is the first conversation in depth that we've had about this ever.
The Rosa Villa Show. Often considered one of the best metal guitarists ever, Dimebag Darrell found enormous success playing with Pantera. He also formed a short-lived band called Damage Plan, who were performing in Columbus's Rosa Villa nightclub on the night of December 8, 2004. Shortly after the first song began, a fan rushed the stage and shot Dimebag Darrell multiple times with a 9mm pistol. Various people attempted to help him and stop the shooter, but they were also killed.
3 people, not including the gunman, died in the shooting.
This includes the band's head of security, an employee of the venue, and a fan who hopped onto the stage. The shooter then took drum tech John Brooks hostage, but he was killed by a responding police officer before more deaths could occur. The Manchester Arena Incident. On the night of May 22, 2017, pop star Ariana Grande was performing in England's Manchester Arena. The concert went off without a hitch and finished a few minutes before 10:30. At exactly 10:31, as the massive crowd was filing out of the venue, a bomb weighing 66 pounds exploded in the arena's foyer.
I think everybody has a right to take a sharp intake of breath and think, oh my goodness, so much went wrong.
22 innocent people were killed in the blast, and over 1,000 were injured. Countless more suffered severe psychological trauma after witnessing the bombing and its aftermath. The incident was linked to an Islamic terrorist who also died in the explosion. The bomber's brother helped source the explosives and was later convicted on 22 counts of murder, resulting in life imprisonment.
We need to learn. We need to hold those who are accountable, and we just need to make sure we're better prepared. Should it ever happen again, I hope not.
Puckle Pop 2011. The summer of 2011 was a bad time for concert tragedies. Just 5 days after the Indiana State Fair tragedy, the Belgian festival Puckle Pop was struck by torrential rain and high winds reaching up to 106 miles per hour.
Around 60,000 people were thought to be at the 3-day event that was hit by a storm.
The storm carved a large swath of damage, like uprooting trees, destroying tents, and knocking down light towers. 140 people were injured in the destruction, and 4 people died at the scene. A 5th later passed away in the hospital.
It caved in at the middle, and people screamed and ran, and everyone was just running away.
The combined Indiana and Puckle Pop incidents resulted in an international uproar, with many people calling for stricter regulations for outdoor concerts. The Astro World Crush. Inaugurated on November 17, 2018, the Astro World Festival was created by Travis Scott and held annually in Houston's NRG Park. Astro World's 3rd iteration occurred in 2021, with the 2020 event being canceled due to COVID. Scott took the stage at 9:02 p.m. on the night of November 5th, causing people to rush the stage in an attempt to get a better view of the rapper.
Officials say there were nearly 50,000 at Friday's Astroworld Festival, headlined by founder and rapper Travis Scott. when the crowd began to surge toward the front of the stage, pushing fans to the ground and crushing others at the outdoor venue.
This resulted in a slow crowd crush that lasted approximately 1 hour. Attendees desperately tried to get the attention of security and even Scott himself. But all these pleas were either ignored or missed, and the show continued.
Usually, like, whenever someone falls in that crowd, like, they'll help them up. But in this case, like, I was on the floor, like, screaming for help and trying to reach for people's hands so they could see me, and no one would see me.
10 people died from compressive asphyxiation, while a further 300 were injured. The 2017 Las Vegas attack. On October 1st, 2017, the United States experienced its deadliest mass shooting by a single gunman, and it occurred on the Las Vegas Strip during the Route 91 Harvest Festival.
We were laying down on the floor. I didn't know to get up, to run, to stay, to duck.
The gunman opened fire from the nearby Mandalay Bay, firing well over 1,000 rounds into the massive crowd below. Hundreds of people were injured from the shooting, and 58 died either at the scene or in the immediate aftermath.
It was very scary at the time, and then I got my wife up. As I got her up, 2 guys came running by that were carrying a girl or somebody that was all bloody, and it looked like they had been shot.
2 others died years later from their injuries, bringing the official death toll to 60. The shooting resulted in a national discussion about gun rights and eventually led to the banning of bump stocks, which allowed the perp to shoot his rifles in rapid succession. The Altamont Free Concert. Just 4 months after the original Woodstock, another famous counterculture concert took place, this time on the West Coast. Called Woodstock West by some, the Altamont Festival hosted the likes of Santana, Jefferson Airplane, and the Rolling Stones, and security was infamously provided by the Hells Angels. Unfortunately, the acts were largely overshadowed by the widespread violence that occurred at the concert.
I'm not talking to you, man. I'm talking to the people that hit my lead singer in the head. You're talking to my people. 2
people died in a hit and run, and a third drowned in a canal after taking LSD. But the most well-known death was that of Meredith Hunter, an audience member who was killed by a Hells Angel after drawing a revolver. For many, the darkness of Altamont symbolizes the end of the hippie era.
Can't do any more than just ask you, to beg you, just to keep it together.
The Love Parade disaster. Between 1989 and 2010, Germany hosted a touring dance festival called Love Parade, which was mostly centered around techno and EDM.
With pressure from all sides, things came to a standstill.
The 2010 iteration was taking place in Duisburg, a city of about 500,000 in the west of the country. The population of the city ballooned for the event as nearly 1.5 million people were thought to have attended the concert. The festival area was only accessible through one narrow tunnel, which quickly became overcrowded and confined with surging bodies.
If you take the expected maximum capacity as a basis, all the turnstiles together were still not sufficient.
The intense bottleneck soon resulted in a violent crowd crush, with one police officer calling the situation a living hell. Hundreds were injured and 21 people died, all from crushed rib cages. The station fire. America's deadliest fireworks accident occurred on February 20th, 2003, at the Station, a small nightclub in West Warwick, Rhode Island.
The governor calls this the 4th worst fatal fire in U.S. history.
462 people were inside the club watching a band called Great White when tour manager Daniel Beakley set off a number of stage pyrotechnics. The sparks ignited the acoustic foam used for soundproofing, and the fire spread at a rapid pace.
Walls collapsing around them, toxic smoke blinding them.
In just 1 minute, thick black smoke had consumed the club. Most people panicked and attempted to escape through the front doors, resulting in a massive crush that blocked the exit and prevented further escape. In mere minutes, the club was completely engulfed by flames, and 100 people died in the fire. Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. The Beverly Hills Supper Club fire. Located in Southgate, Kentucky, was the Beverly Hills Supper Club, an opulent venue that nevertheless had a number of extreme deficiencies.
Flames were visible in Mount Adams, Ohio, several miles above.
For example, There was an inadequate amount of fire exits, no alarm or sprinkler, faulty wiring, and piecemeal construction. All this resulted in tragedy on May 28, 1977. The club was overbooked, containing double the max capacity of 1,500, many of whom were there to watch singer John Davidson perform. A fire began in the club's ceiling and quickly spread throughout the building.
One of the first firemen on the scene said, "I opened the door and people were just on their heads, literally stacked up one on top of the other."
Panic ensued, and people were either crushed in doorways or stuck in dead ends owing to the building's confusing layout. The roof eventually collapsed and destroyed the club shortly after midnight. A total of 165 people lost their lives. Are there other tragic concert events that deserve to be remembered? If so, share those with us in the comments below.
You know, if we are all one, let's show we're all one.